Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into our program today. You may know that Family Talk is a listener-supported program, and we remain on the air by your generosity, literally. If you can help us financially, we would certainly appreciate it. God's blessings to you all.
Today on Family Talk. Since the 1970s, the number of children diagnosed with autism in America has skyrocketed. And the Journal of Pediatrics says families spend on average $17,000 per year on each kid in their home who has autism. This life-altering diagnosis is a major emotional, physical, and financial strain on parents, and they need help along this journey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. I'm Jim Veldhuis, stepping into the announcer role for Roger Marsh on this broadcast. Today, you'll hear from Mark and Jenny Shaffer, whose son Justice was diagnosed with autism at a young age. The Shaffers will share the struggles parents with special needs children face and the desire for assistance from the body of Christ. Also joining the broadcast by phone is Dr. Jerry Kartzinel, a board-certified pediatrician whose son Joshua is autistic. He'll talk about how families can recognize the signs of autism and the common misconceptions the public has about this disease. Let's dive into part one of this conversation that Dr. Tim Clinton conducted in the K-Wave Studios in Southern California on this edition of Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
Welcome into Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. I'm Dr. Tim Clinton, sitting in for Dr. Dobson today. Let me open today with a very sobering statistic. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, just released its latest data. 1 in 36 children, 1 in 36 of our kids will at some point in their lives be diagnosed with this disorder. It's autism. Today, we're blessed to have 3 in-studio guests, and we're going to talk about autism. We're going to talk about what it's like to have a family with an autistic child and how God can bring great glory to himself through all of this. Our special guests include Mark and Jenny Shaffer. Mark's the Community Relations Manager at a Christian radio station, K-Wave. Actually, that's where we're at right now, recording this particular program. It's great to have you, Mark. Thanks for inviting us in.
No, it's great to have you guys here.
And Dr. Dobson's show airs on this particular station.
Absolutely.
2 to 2:30 every day?
Every day.
Every day.
Monday through Friday.
And his wife, Jenny. Jenny, welcome into Family Talk. Great to have you.
Hello, thank you.
And also joining us today is Dr. Kartzinel.
Right.
Jerry, great to have you join us. And I'm told, too, that you also have a child with autism, and you guys have collectively collaborated together. I think this should really be a robust program. Jerry, welcome in.
Thank you very much.
Hey, as we get started, Mark and Jenny, tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, Jenny and I have been married now for 24 years. Come August, it'll be 25. And we started out with high expectations for family. We waited a number of years before having children. When we finally pulled the trigger on that, and God blessed us with our oldest son, Justice. And he is now 17 years old. He is a love of our lives. And Justice was diagnosed with autism just right at his 3rd birthday, basically.
Just before age 3.
Yeah. And so we have since had another son. Our younger son, Jordan, is 11 now. And it's just the 2 boys. We have a great family dynamic. We have been blessed. God has blessed our home. And we've been through a lot of struggles. We've been through a lot of family issues. And then we had this come out when Justice was 3. So this was back in 2001 when he was diagnosed. And it was a bombshell in our family.
Can you take us back to maybe that day, that moment? What led up to that, Jenny?
Well, I noticed something was wrong well before 2.5 years old.
What'd you notice?
Well, he wasn't talking. He didn't make eye contact. He would be flapping his hands and spinning in circles and walking on his tiptoes. And he wasn't like the other kids. And if I took him out to the park for the day, he wouldn't be playing appropriately like on the jungle gym. He'd be over in the planter, like playing with the bark in the planter. It wasn't normal. He wasn't playing with his cars normal. He would like just sit there and spin the wheel and watch the wheel spin and watch fans spin on the ceiling. And I kept saying, like, something's wrong. And it actually went on for a while, and I would take him into the pediatrician, and they would just blow me off and say, like, oh, well, boys talk later. But I just had this mom instinct in me that was just like nails on a chalkboard. And Mark wasn't really cluing into it.
I wasn't. I was in total denial. I just believed what the doctor said, that, oh, well, he's just talking late and he'll come around and it's okay, boys talk late. And I was in complete denial, but Jenny just had this unrest in her that, wouldn't let her give it up.
And so it's interesting because I finally found this pediatrician in the area where we were living. And so I went in. I didn't get her as my doctor, but I got the old man pediatrician, and I walked my son in, and he was flapping, not making eye contact, doing all the shenanigans. And I said, at that point, I had researched so much, I realized, like, he might have autism. Like, and the doctor, I said to him, doesn't it look like he have autism? And he goes, hello.
Really?
And he said he definitely has this. He says, I work with the regional center at Children's Hospital of Oakland, and he wrote a script right away, go see the doctor there at Children's Hospital Oakland. So I took him over to there, and he wasn't even able to complete the whole system of test. He wasn't even able to walk up the stairs because he had such horrible vestibular issues, and it's where you are in relation to, like, if he was up high, he couldn't handle it. It was just, and so she did half the testing, and he was diagnosed with severe autism.
So when people often talk about autism, they talk autism spectrum disorder. I know there's some debate out there.
Right.
But in terms of severity, how is Justice?
Well, now he's doing great. Like, I mean, when he was first diagnosed, that doctor was like, well, good luck with this. And they sent us on our way.
Really?
Yeah, they just were like, good luck with this.
You don't get a lot of empathy from the medical community, unfortunately.
And at that time, let's just say at that time.
Yeah, that's true.
Because this was in 2003, actually. But once I did, finally figure out some things about him that were going on with him, we started working with him. Like, we changed his diet, and we did all that biomedical kind of stuff, and he really, really, like, responded to that.
Right.
And so now some would say he's very high functioning because he can talk.
Yeah.
You can have a conversation with him. He has interests. He's doing things that are more appropriate. However, I have friends that have nonverbal kids. First of all, I want to preface this all with Mark and I are one couple with a child with autism, and there is a saying that goes, once you've met one kid with autism, you've met one kid with autism. So I'm sharing our story.
Your story.
I don't want to, like, put this out there like this is everybody. I have some friends whose children can't talk, and they're like, you're so lucky your son can talk, but sometimes what he says is inappropriate, or
Sometimes
it's off subject, it's very strange. And so people kind of look at him and think, like, oh, he's typical, but then he'll, like, say something really, really bizarre or not pertaining to the discussion, and they'll kind of be like, oh, that was weird. So it's difficult, because it's like, yes, he's high functioning, you can talk with him, and he can do a lot of these things, but it can become a danger, too.
We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Julie and I actually have a very close friends, the Tomlins, who live back in Virginia, where we are from. And their oldest son, Coy, is autistic. We call him Awesome-tistic.
Awesome-tistic.
He's amazing. He loves baseball.
Yeah.
We're a baseball family. He loves
Right.
baseball. So there's a lot of story here, but we certainly understand that.
Yeah.
Let me bring Dr. Jerry into the conversation here. Dr. Jerry, let me ask you real quick a little bit about your story and connecting some of the dots here with this family.
Well, I'm a board-certified pediatrician, and I got brought into this when my fourth boy was diagnosed with autism, developed autistic characteristics and traits, losing language, losing eye contact, up most of the night, screaming, tantruming, hyperactive, diarrhea. And my wife basically said, now you got to figure out how to fix this. And I think God had a purpose of bringing Joshua into our life so that I could be helpful to other families around the country, around the world, bringing in medical treatments. And why we think about medical treatments with these children is even though they may have a diagnosis of autism, if an autistic child breaks his arm, well, we'll set it and we'll fix it. If an autistic child can't have normal bowel movements because they're constipated or having diarrhea, we should be able to fix that. Or if they're not sleeping through the night, well, we should be able to address that. And when you make the child feel much better, where they're able to eat more normally, they're able to sleep the whole night, when they're able to digest their food and all, they're going to do better in their therapies. So that's when we hear about this biomedical intervention. But my wife and I learned firsthand how, spiritually devastating this is. The churches, especially back in the late, 1990s, 2000, were not set up for our kids. Nobody wanted to see Joshua coming in. When people hear the word or the diagnosis of autism, they no longer want to come over to your house, or they don't want you to bring your kid over to their house. So it's socially isolating.
Sure.
And of course, all these
Absolutely.
supplements and everything financially, it's really an expensive road to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think maybe it's just bad parenting or whatever, don't they?
Yeah, they think, these kids are just spoiled, a good spanking. Back in the old days, it was raising children God's way, and they had this very, tough way to raise kids. And it's like, gosh, if a good spanking would fix these kids, we wouldn't have a problem.
How about it?
These children react differently to stimuli. You can get that form.
Well, there's a real intense sensitivity, right,
Yes.
Dr. Jerry?
Yeah, it's just they don't respond to things. Like, for example, kids who won't eat certain foods because they have the wrong smell, the wrong color, the wrong look, or whatever. They don't respond to food in a normal way. They may not respond to their bladder or the stool that they're holding inside of them in a normal way, and they just won't go in the toilet. They just don't respond to stimuli. And the more stimuli they don't respond to in a normal way, like you were mentioning earlier, the spectrum, the lower functioning on the spectrum they are. The more stimuli they respond to in a normal way, the higher they are on that spectrum. And I guess our job is to help them respond to stimuli in a normal way. It could be something as simple as like, go get your shoes. Yeah. Or dad coming home and the child saying, I love you, Daddy, how was your day? That's not a trick. That's an actual response to stimuli of a parent coming home from being at work all day.
Yeah,
so that's what we're trying to do with these kids.
Dr. Jerry, I don't even think you know this right now, but Justice comes up to me every day when I come home from work and tells me how much he loves me, and that he's glad I'm home. And a lot of Jenny and I's story goes through Dr. Jerry. We met him at a very crucial time in Justice's development, and Dr. Jerry, I don't even know if I've told you this, but I consider you a mentor in my life, not just through the world of autism, but in my marriage, in my walk with the Lord. You have spoken words of wisdom into me that I hope have not fallen on deaf ears.
So we're blessed to have all of you here on Family Talk. By the way, you're listening to Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. I'm Dr. Tim Clinton, president of the American Association of Christian Counselors, filling in for Dr. Dobson today. We're talking about autism. It's Autism Awareness Month this month, and we're celebrating that and celebrating the families and the lives of those who are out there who are dealing with this every day and trying to raise kids and love on them and help them to find their way and their place in this big old world that we live in. Dr. Jerry, and I'm going to ask both you, the two of you too, Mark and Jenny, everybody always asks the question, why? Some people relate it back from what I've seen to vaccinations and so many different things. You guys, no doubt, have just searched high and low. Mm-hmm. Why? Dr. Jerry, let me start with you. Maybe you can throw in some wisdom our way, and I'll come back to Mark and Jenny on it.
Okay, well, first of all, we have to keep in mind that this is a worldwide phenomenon, this increase in autistic children. In my medical training back in the 80s, the autism rate was between 1 and 4 per 10,000. Okay? Wow. And I've watched it go to 1 in 500, 1 in 188.
I mean, it's soaring. It's soaring.
It's soaring. So something is affecting these children. And there's nothing that we can call like a genetic epidemic that affects all people all around the country, all around the world. So something's definitely impacting our children in a negative way. And, there has to be a hard look at anything that we're doing to our children, cause and effect, whether it be the pesticides or ultrasounds or low vitamin D levels in pregnant moms. And, there's lots of different theories. And, of course, one of them is vaccines. And as a doctor who listens to histories, I do hear over and over parents concerned about, vaccines potentially being a trigger for this. But I also have kids who have not been vaccinated in my clinic who have also developed autism. So I don't think it's a very clear picture. I think the biggest thing that we have to focus on would be that there's actually really good treatments out there for our children to bring them back into our world, to be able to respond to stimuli, to be able to communicate with us, to be actually accomplish, developmental milestones that until now most people would have just written off.
Mark, Jenny, you guys add anything to this?
I'm wondering if your question is a spiritual why, or are you saying, why did our son have autism? Do you know what I mean?
Sure. And you know what? It's kind of a both and.
Okay.
Sure, we're going to come back to the Lord and ask, say, God, why? Why us? Why our family? Why our son?
Because
why our child?
It is catastrophic.
Mm-hmm. It's devastating to a family. I know that when our son was diagnosed, I immediately went into depression. And my whole question was, what does it mean? What's he going to look like in 10 years and in 15 years? What does this diagnosis? Is my son going to graduate from high school? Will he ever drive a car? Will he play ball? What does this mean? And I would go to the experts and they would look at me and they go, I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know?
That's the thing.
What is it?
Hey, let's help our listeners understand this for a moment.
Yeah.
What's it like behind the closed doors in an autistic home?
My wife just
I've
gave
heard
you
many stories,
It's like
Jenny.
a roller coaster, and it's like a tightrope walk. Like, which arena? Like the school.
Yeah.
The school.
Dealing with schools is different.
Tightrope walking that. Like, do I go in and talk to the teachers? Do I lay back? It's like you're constantly trying to figure out, like, how to manage them,
But if it's not the schools, it's medical practices, it's therapies, it's biomedical.
It's up all night.
Treatment.
It can be the people you hire, too. Like, we've hired people. I remember this behaviorist that we hired. We paid her out of pocket. And we paid her assistant out of pocket, and to help our son, we had walked
tens of thousands of dollars.
It was like $30,000 in a month we spent, and it ended up being the wrong fit. And you're just out that money. Too bad. So, I don't know. I'm pretty tough. Like, I'm tough as nails, but. Man, I have my moments.
It's rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I didn't grow up in a home where you cry and you let it out. So I have my once a year cry, I guess. I don't know.
She is tough as nails, and I got to tell you this. I want to give my wife so much credit in this because she has dug and dug and dug. She gets this unsettled feeling, and she will not
I won't
stop.
You're going to stay right with it.
And that's the way her
That's
love.
my OCD kicking in, no?
That's okay. We like that.
It's her love also for her son.
What do you want the church to know? I hear the spiritual dynamic here for a moment. What do you want people of faith to know about autism and autistic families?
Right off the bat, when you asked me that, I was struggling to get help. And I don't mean just dumping him off at a program or whatever. But like us parents, we need a body. We need somebody to come into the home and like help us. And I didn't have that. I mean, the area we were living in, nobody really wanted to do it. So,
You're right. You isolate.
Yeah. And so, I mean, let's not even get into that. When your friends you're at the store and they turn the shopping cart and go the other way. Oh, yes. I know about that. But I'm talking about, I just kind of started hitting a bottom, and I just finally wrote a letter to the youth pastor at our church, and I said, I need help. I need somebody that will come and just be with him for a while so I can get dishes done or like do laundry. I'm not asking for much. And you know what? This girl from the youth group showed up at the door and just came like 2 to 3 times a week. We set up a schedule. She'd come for a few hours, and she didn't ask for a penny. After a while, I did start giving her, something. But, I mean, my encouragement to parents out there is get involved at the church. If that church isn't accommodating your kid, move on. Keep looking. There are churches out there that will accommodate your kids. Keep looking and don't give up and ask for help. People don't know what you need. They don't know what we need. They don't even know what you're going through. Mm-hmm. But you have to tell them what you're going through and ask for help. And don't
Part
stop
of it's a
until
lack
you
of
get
understanding.
It. True.
And fear. There's fear.
They're afraid.
You hear what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And they're afraid of being overwhelmed. They don't even know how to embrace this child, say, he's severe. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
It is scary.
But one of the best piece of advice that I ever got on the spiritual side to what Jenny was just talking to came from Dr. Jerry. And that was, he told me, Mark, he goes, if your children don't like going to that church, find a different church. You and Jenny are spiritually mature. You can get fed anywhere. Go to a church where your kids want to go. And he was speaking specifically of Justice, and of course my younger son as well. And that's what we've done. Like Jenny said, move on to a different church. Find some place where your kids want to go, where they are welcoming.
You've been listening to Family Talk and Dr. Tim Clinton's discussion with 2 families who have children with autism. If you were moved by today's show or could relate to the hardships these parents are dealing with, call Family Talk's listener feedback line at 844-823-2669. When you call, you'll have 2 minutes to share your thoughts on this program or suggest a topic or guest we should have on our airwaves. That number again for our listener feedback line is 844-823-2669. You can also email us at feedback@myfamilytalk.com. That's feedback@myfamilytalk.com. We greatly appreciate your comments and would also be interested in knowing how you listen to Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk throughout your busy life. Whether that's on the radio, online through our website or our friends at oneplace.com, or with our mobile app, we want to enhance your listening experience. As we end this Monday edition of Family Talk, we want to remind you that this ministry is completely listener-supported. Every dollar that you're able to give fuels our fight for the family and the institution of marriage. If you're able to help us, go online now to drjamesdobson.org to make a secure donation there, or you can pledge your gift by phone when you call 877-732-6825. That's 877-732-6825. Thank you for blessing our ministry as we continue to do the work the Lord has called us to do. And thanks for listening today, and make sure to join us tomorrow to hear part 2 of this great conversation on Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. I'm Jim Veldhuis. Have a great Monday, everyone. Family Talk is not associated with Focus on the Family.
Just how tough is it to be a good parent today?
Dr. James Dobson for Family Talk.
A couple of years ago, I asked 1,000 mothers and fathers to describe their greatest frustrations in raising kids. I heard all kinds of goofy stories in response about sticky telephones and wet toilet seats and shoestrings in a knot. One mother actually wanted to know why it is that a toddler never throws up in the bathroom. That would violate some kind of great unwritten law of the universe, to be sure. But in my poll, parents didn't merely laugh about their frustrations. They tended to blame themselves. They said they were overwhelmed and were losing confidence and didn't really know how to cope anymore. How sad it is that this age-old responsibility of raising children has become so burdensome and guilt-laden. Actually, the facts won't support that self-condemnation in the majority of cases. Millions of parents have handled their child-rearing responsibility with great skill, and it's time that someone patted them on the back for their commitment and their sacrifice. And someday, when the frustrations of toddlerhood and the turmoil of adolescence have passed, they'll enjoy the sweet benefits of a job well done. Hang in there, moms and dads. Your kids will be young for the mere blink of an eye.
To hear more, visit our broadcast page at drjamesdobson.org.